Hello, everybody. This is Meadow and Amara, also known as Missy, and this is Brad, also known as
What's
Endless
going on?
88. Tonight, we're here to talk about our MMOs basically becoming single player RPGs. This is something that we've run into quite a bit in the last few years with MMOs, and it's a question I think that all of us have probably been pondering for quite some time. So, basically, I would say right off the bat, um, it's starting to look like in a lot of your most popular games that MMOs are basically becoming single player RPGs based on trust systems, say in Final Fantasy. Um, it's getting to the point that you don't even have to LFG or LFR or anything. You can go in basically with bots, which to me is crazy. And they're not always the best either, let me tell you. They have died on me a couple of times, so I can't even trust my trust system, but real people, it shows, are actually better than using your automated heroes. So, Brad, what do you think?
Well, you mentioned one of those, and as far as I guess my position for tonight, I want to mainly go off because we've already I will bring up some of the actual like social, psychological side of it, but we've kind of covered that in our first episode of, is guild culture dead and all that stuff, So, but I'm gonna kind of go with the systems kind of in place and how they're um like you said, the trust system, for example, I wrote that down. But technically, looking for a group and looking for raid in World of Warcraft, and the duty finder in Final Fantasy and all that stuff, technically, those themselves, you queue, you run the dungeon, no one says anything, and then you leave. Um, the trust system takes that even further and says you don't gotta wait for nobody. You just play the game as if it was just an RPG. you know, a regular Final Fantasy game. Um, and so I think, the systems that they're incorporating now and have been for, I mean, Elif, Looking for a Group came out after World of Warcraft. Um, and that was back in, oh, I think like 2009, maybe. Um, So I mean, it's been there because I remember I got to Trial of the Crusader level 80 and Wrath of the Lich King, and then they came out with that. And at the time, it was really cool. It was like, oh yeah, yeah, this is awesome. We could just queue up. Like if there's two of us, we can queue up, and it just automatically puts us together. Um, and then looking for raid was the end of um, Cataclysm. That was with Deathwing, and that was introduction of it. So that was a little bit later on. But before all that, you still had to put your raid teams together. You still had to. Um, did we just lose our stream here? Yeah, maybe Twitch is just
Twitchy?
being fun, like being twitchy.
Twitch is being twitchy?
All right, there we go. Just had
There
to
we go.
reload it. But yeah. Um, so yeah, I mean, like I said, it's been going on for a while, right? And I think um, just kind of like go into this is, but do we think, necessarily are these things, um, a result of the industry and these developers trying to, because MMOs, right, they are, a definition is a massive multiplayer online game. Um, I know we were kind of coming at this originally from the aspect of, are they becoming single player, you know, and technically what I've been reading and what people have been talking about is, there are people that just want to get on, They want to play. They don't want to deal with anyone else, but they still want to be able to play the game they love, right? Just because, I mean, after a long day of work, you have literally like 3 or 4 hours to play, if that, right? So you just want to get in there, you want to do it. Instead of waiting in a queue as a DPS, because that's what you love to play, right? You want to be a black mage, and or you want to be a warrior in World of Warcraft. I guess technically you can be a warrior in both Final Fantasy or World of Warcraft. And do you want to wait 45 minutes when you only have 3 hours to play? So,
Nope.
so I put on here, and then I'll shut up. Was where you at? Have we traded community and being social for faster queues and convenience?
I think most definitely, and I think that's something that these developers are playing into, and it's got to be based on what the players are asking for. Um, I don't think they would just go and try to force a whole new system on us, but I think that people's roles in society have changed a lot, except for COVID. Everybody's been home. But basically, the workday is changing. It's getting longer for people. Commutes are getting longer. Hours are displaced a lot. People don't have a lot of time anymore. And if you are working and it's COVID, your window of opportunity has also shrunk to do anything and run your life. So, even more so now, I think people just, have a short window, get home. It's even shorter than the time was before because they get home now maybe after 7, 8 o'clock at night and they only have like 2 to 3 hours. So they definitely don't have time to wait around, which brings me to my point of even though people are playing, when you go in, nobody's even really, for the most part, willing to help anymore. They'll all be chatting. Everybody goes in there. It's like a social club, but you're losing the gaming help. If you've noticed in any sort of a chat, the chat's rolling and rolling and rolling. People are talking and talking and talking, and then, somebody comes in, mostly us, and says, does anybody want to help us clear this? And the chat goes, boom, silent. It's like everybody's just like,
Right.
we're not here. We just went to the bathroom, all of us at once, for 20 minutes, and then nobody even speaks. It's almost like a conversation killer, just trying to get somebody to run something. Everybody's fine to sit back and chat and hang out in the guild chat or hang out in, your free company chat. But when it comes to actually helping, nobody seems to want to do that. And it's basically a conversation killer instead of somebody popping up going, yeah, well, I'm not doing anything but sitting here chatting. Sure, I'll help you run that. It's going to take what, 15 minutes? You know.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that that's another aspect too, is that nobody wants to help. Not only do people want to be in and out, but there's also not a lot of people that are willing to help. Now, certainly there are, I'm not saying this of all groups, but we've been bouncing around to several of them to check this out. And for the most part, it seems like this is going on in most guilds or FCs or anything like that. This is a common denominator that we have seen. So if people are just bouncing in for 2 hours and people are talking in guild chat and nobody is helping them, I would say they're probably getting pretty frustrated trying to get through the game, especially, if they're, a couple patches behind and they're still running, like a 2-month-old dungeon or raid and they need some help. It's like very current content you can sometimes get people to help you with. But older content for people that are new to the game, yeah, you don't get any help at all. And you just sit there in a queue for over 30 minutes and nobody's got that kind of time. And when you have to run a raid or a dungeon to progress your story, it is extremely frustrating.
Yeah,
So,
and I
mhm.
yeah, and I think to build on that, see, so like World of Warcraft definitely is is a lot better about that though, I will say though, because you don't have to run dungeons, they're just kind of there, right? And they normally do, if like normally I only run a dungeon once to get the quests done in them. Um which originally quests were not in them, they were actually like either right in front of them or like integrated into the quests in that zone or whatever. But anyways, Final Fantasy though, yes, locks you behind running a dungeon. And then you're like standing there going like, that meme where he's like, what's going on here? What's going on? Because if you're new to the game, like you said, um, you're gonna be like, okay, now what do I do? Oh wow, got some pretty good thunder out there. That was fun.
How do you have
Um,
thunder in a cockpit? Is there thunder in space?
no, this is probably my engines, reverberating. Um, or it's either that or I got hit by an asteroid.
That's never good.
Nope. Um,
Nobody likes to get smacked in the asteroid.
right, definitely. Let me see. So I think this is one thing that actually Square Enix and Yoshi P is kind of like falling, like is coming, like World of Warcraft is they give you plethora of options, right? Like they have given you so many different ways of playing this game that a new player could just hop in there and go, and the game is massive. And Shadowlands is going to try to lineate, like make that a lot more linear. If you're a brand new player, you have to go 1 through 10 in Exile's Reach, 10 to 50 in BFA, and then 50 to 60 Shadowlands. So they're like, making that very streamlined. For the veterans, we'll have an option of Exile's Reach or the Old Zone starting area, and then 10 to 50. It From what I've played, it directs you to BFA. Like you have to technically go unlock BFA and then come back, and then you could talk to Chromie. I don't know if that's an actual glitch or not. But then Chromie gives you the option of playing through Cataclysm, which they've combined Old World and Cataclysm together, and then all the other expansions. And I know this is one thing people were asking, because when you go back to, let's say, Mists of Pandaria, it pretty much locks you into doing Mists of Pandaria dungeons. And a lot of people were talking about how this feature, it's like, well, what if there's not that many people doing Mists of Pandaria, but people want to do these dungeons? What's the queues going to be like? So people are actually requesting that they just put them all in a like we get a random dungeon finder like Final Fantasy. Um, so then it keeps all. That's one thing about Final Fantasy that we like, right? Is the roulettes. The roulettes keep all the content relevant, even though there's a crap ton of dungeons now. Um, but I think with Final Fantasy, like I said, I think it's the systems. I mean, Final Fantasy had a good system in the beginning, and now they've what do I call it? But now that system is being crushed under the weight of the game now and how long it's been out. Um, and we see that with the storyline experience, just doing the main scenario quests is just, I mean, it puts you. I'm almost level 40, like I've said before, and I'm barely getting to Ifrit, which is normally a level 20 thing. Yes, I have the new server buff, but anyone else that joins is going to have that same buff. They're going to have the same issue. They're going to be like, man, I'm level 40. Why am I so ahead? Um, and WoW, you kind of outlevel areas and you could do what you want. There's more freedom. Um, and it's easy enough. Like that's one thing I kind of laughed in Exile's Reach. You had a quest that said, "Oh, this requires 3 people to do. It's a big bear you got to kill, right?" Well, I can solo that very easily, and you don't need to be a new or veteran player to be able to do that. It's just requires 3 people. Well, I don't got time for 3 people, and I think in conclusion, for what I was going to say right now is I think because this has been something that's been going on since 2009 and going, or 2008, excuse me, and going and just building and building and building upon itself, that um, we've kind of now been tailored, we've been groomed to think that way and just be like, I've got time for a group. What you talking about? Unless like it's your friend, right? Um, so yeah, I think the systems have adapted with the gamers, but as like I said before, have we traded that being social and community for faster queues and convenience? Because technically we need them. Um, like I said, my conclusion on what I'm talking about now is, does the age of the gamers dictate this? MMOs are kind of technically considered for older people, because now those kids that played this game back in 2008, 2000, actually I think it came out with 2005.
Yeah.
Now they're in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and they got families, they got kids, they got jobs, they got school. Like, who has time to sit there on a computer 18 hours a day rating?
I wish.
And right, it'd be nice. So, in conclusion, so I can shut up, is I think that they've tailored it to the old crowd, but the old crowd still loves the old ways, right?
But
That's
they
why they want
usually
like
generally
classic.
have like set guilds or set FCs. These people have played together for a very long time, and they will do that till the end of time. We know of a couple that are, very much like that. So they're not going to be changing anything. They are helpful too because they're always around. And whether it just be like a raiding group or anything like that. Um, Even just like hanging out as friends, but they're like more like real life friends and it's just like hanging out now. So there are still,
The old guard.
the old guard, yeah. And they're still there. However, a lot of them are exclusive. I think a
Yep.
lot of them don't take new players. You don't see them advertised. You can't really find them. You have to basically be invited, but good luck because how do you meet anybody anyway? Like you can't even forge new relationships anymore because of all of this. So
Yeah.
you're left with jumping around from guild to guild or FC to FC or whatever it is that you're playing, looking for a home, where somebody's like that, where you have somebody like the old guard. But like I said, it's going to be hit and miss for people if that's what they're looking for, unless they already know somebody in that situation. Um, because they're not going to really probably meet anyone because who's out there really to meet?
Well,
Everybody's
see,
just running around doing their own thing.
yeah. Well, I think you kind of hit it on the head with exclusivity with these guilds, right? Because I heard from Asman today was, people actually like people that play WoW don't necessarily like games. They like playing WoW. And so the people that are probably that old guard that are still sticking together, that are still doing this, WoW is the only thing they freaking play. And when you have and when you have like people like us that are like, well, I don't just want, like, I used to be that way, right? I used to be like, WoW is my game. But now I got Final Fantasy 14, you got Elder Scrolls Online, you got Age of Ashes of Creation coming up, New World coming up, I got the consoles. I mean, there's such a plethora of games where it's like,
You're a man of many games.
yeah, well, I mean, even you, like I said, I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
you don't like just play WoW. Like WoW, that would just be boring, you know?
Well, because we also are consuming the content so quickly too, that is basically in, out, 2 weeks. Okay, next. Because there isn't really much. If you're not a progressive raider and you've gone through the storyline, then what is there for you to really do? Especially if you're not
Level
somebody.
all.
Yeah, I was gonna say, unless you're the kind of person that has 40 alts.
Yeah.
um,
Well, see, even in that thing, I think that's actually bad for me. I was thinking about this, kind of break away from the topic for a little bit. Well, I mean, I guess not really, but because I've been kind of forced casual. If I was on the East Coast, then I could probably look to raid with with Heretic, our guild on Hyjal. Because I think that'd be fun. Um, but yeah, I mean, I kind of was thinking about this. I'm like, man, like I have all these alts. I guess. Well, what's the definition of insanity?
doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result.
Exactly. And so I think, and this is one thing, and this is actually another good topic too to throw your way, being Missy is the new, this is her thing now. So she's the main host for Cool Cats Chats. So if you want to be on this, talk to her. Um, is it was a George Lucas talked about the difference between pleasure and joy. When I asked my wife this, and she actually popped it off real quick, I'm like, damn, you must have been like watching the same thing or just no. But pleasure is like it's quick, but then it's gone. Joy is lasting, right? So he described that when you bought, let's say you had enough money to buy 4 Ferraris, but it might have been pleasurable in the moment. I don't know who would need 4 Ferraris, but anyways, this was like the thing, right?
Rich people.
But yeah, so you buy this and then you get that you know you get that pleasure right in that moment, that like instant pleasure, but then it's gone and you're like, well, what the hell, you were trying to recreate that moment where you bought your first car, and that after, and you ain't gonna get that back, just like me and all my alts. I was thinking about this. I'm like, am I playing WoW and every new expansion, am i am I trying to go out, even with Final Fantasy now, because it's been out forever, like every expansion, everything with WoW and Final Fantasy, am I trying to go after that same feeling I had when I first played this game? And I know everyone can say yes. If anyone ever says no to that, they're lying to themselves, because that's why we get so invested, because we're just like, stop ruining the games. What's all these systems in here? Let's just go back to this. It's because we're trying to get that first moment of pleasure that's never going to come again. You'll get that first, like, oh, new expansion, but I mean, even after that, it's like, this is still World of Warcraft. This is still Final Fantasy. There's a brand new game. I'm gonna go play that. Like, yeah. So yeah, I think for myself, I having so many alts, I think that's what I'm trying to do, is I'm trying to get myself that moment again, and that's never going to come back again.
See, for me, it's just that and my reason for alts is I haven't played a lot of these MMOs for a long time, like a lot of people have. So I'm still kind of testing the waters with all the different classes, kind of to see what I like, what I don't like. I won't be a tank. I do have a tank, but it's not my thing. Healer, if I must. It's all I have tried everything, but not absolutely every class of everything. So, um, for
Yeah.
me, that would just be purely still wanting to stay in the game, do something a little different, go into an area I haven't explored yet. Um, like going over to the Horde, there's a whole point of view in the story lines that I haven't even explored everything yet. So it's still
Won't be
pure
that way in
joy.
Shadowlands.
Well, it's still pure joy for me because that's a whole different scenario now for me. So I'm rather enjoying it, being on the dark side or the light side, however you choose to see it.
Right.
So that's
Well,
my joy.
well, yeah. Well, see, for you, yeah, like I said, I mean, I've been playing World of Warcraft for over 12 years. Final Fantasy, I think we're over 7 years now. Um, and like I said, if Sinister was here tonight, I think he would, I mean, he's been playing World of Warcraft since closed beta. So, um, and I know we've talked about it that, we're just like, we want a new game. We want a new game. Um, and that was like one of my other things is, will the systems and the MMO, MMORPG, World of Warcraft is MMORPG, so massive multiplayer online role playing game. For those who didn't know what that whole string of letters is I think definitely the systems are here to stay. A lot of people would love to see looking for raid go away.
But then what are you going to do?
Well, so this is the thing, and this is what I came up with is, will it continue to get worse? I think it will definitely continue and probably will get worse. I don't think it'll get worse, but it definitely will continue. I think these systems are here to stay, but also I put on here, it's a question mark. So does hardcore and when I say hardcore, I'm not talking about like militaristic 18 hours a day, 20 hours a day, 27 hours a day. There's only 24. Um, does hardcore, meaning you actually get a group together, you actually put it together, you actually meet these people, and you're going in to go into content and actually down stuff. Does that mean technically to bring back like social and that community, you actually need to go hardcore? While if you were casual, which like I said, you and me have been that way for a while, and I know of other people too. But when we consider ourselves casual, does that mean that technically, you know, we actually prefer? So being casual means that you actually prefer single player. I'm gonna get in, I'm gonna do the new expansion stuff, the new patch stuff, and then once I'm done, I'm done. You know, but a hardcore means that you're technically going to be working with these same people. You're going to be talking with them, working with them, running dungeons with them, running raids with them. You know, so does that, um, does that play a part in it too? That technically, if you want that, like Classic technically brought that in. There is no dungeon finder in Classic. There is none of that stuff in Classic. So if you want to run Dead Mines, which I haven't run Dead Mines in forever, if you want to run Dead Mines, you had to talk with people, you had to walk your asses to that dungeon and get in there. So,
I'd hope you didn't die
you know,
along the way.
yeah. So all that time putting together the group, talking with those people, you know, so it encouraged, well, instead of having to rebuild a random group every single time, you're like, I'm going to have a guild and have fixed people to run with. So I think,
So you're
you know,
saying that it's basically like getting rid of it is going to force people to go back to the way it was if they want to run that kind of content.
yeah, like if you want to run, I mean, technically, like Mythic Plus is still there in the sense of if you want to do Mythic Plus, you have to put together a group, and what does that mean? Now that comes in the systems of like the Raider IO score or the Mythics, like your item level, and this is the problem with kind of, the accessibility is determined by the leader of that group. And but then, you know, but these developers have made systems that are trying to please everyone. Everyone gets a trophy. So when you actually have a system in there that goes and it puts the power into that raid leader's hands, which they've already taken out like personal loot for example, right? Versus master looter. Like just because a lot of people, because I can't say a few, but I guess in the majority of things, ninja looted and said, no, you can't get this gear because you weren't here. It's like, these MMOs are technically real worlds, with actual like society, rules set in them. Like when you join a guild, that the main tank, this is set by them, the main tank and the tanks and the off tank are going to get theirs first, then the healers and the DPS, or it'll be top DPS, best healers, and then the tanks, right?
But do you think
So
that this is going to really work now to revert back to the old ways now that people are used to getting things and they're used to
not
being able to pop in and out of the game and not require a guild
not in the
presence?
current MMOs. Not in the current MMOs. It will not change in World of Warcraft. That thing's been dated, stamped. That thing looks like it's been all over the world, with stamps all over it. So that ain't gonna change, right? So even Final Fantasy is not going to change. Final Fantasy came in with the personal loot system, though. You get your gear, no one rolls on it, minus the raids. But in dungeons, I think, actually, excuse me, they're there, and you have to need or greed. And it used to be like that, and I don't know why Blizzard's like, let the kids play. That saying, just let them go and actually do what they're going to do. Let the kids play. Um, and I heard it's going to get even worse. And I know Preach talked about the covenants on 7. He says it's not the covenants that's the issue. It's the fact that Blizzard, more so before, they were like, hey, here's the world, go play in it. Here's your sandbox. But now it's, you got to do it this way. You got to pick a covenant. You got to do their stuff. You got to earn renown. You got to do this covenant. You got to do the soulbind. And so pretty much they're telling you how to play your game that you're paying them for.
It always ends up that way, even in real life.
Oh yeah. Well, and I think this is why people are,
I mean, right
this is
down
why
to the fact that you and I and a whole bunch of people are running a raid, and I'm a cloth wearer, and I get a leather drop, and I can't even trade it to somebody in that raid who needs the leather.
well, in Final Fantasy you can't do that.
No, that's what
I
I'm saying.
think I think this is yeah.
You
Well, I
know,
think this is the issue, right?
I mean, fine that you get what you get, but it should be something for your class. Like, just, it doesn't even have to be something like that you don't have, but it just should be, if I'm going to get a drop, can I just have it then? If you're going to control it, can it be a cloth drop? Because what am I going to do with, you know, plate armor, mail, leather? Like, there's nothing for me to do with it, really.
Well, normally, I mean, Final Fantasy, you only get what you can actually wear. I mean, the only thing that drops multiples of like is like the raids, but then you can't even need those, right? You just greet them, for your other
Which I do like
jobs on
that
your
though, because if somebody needs it, they will get it over your greed.
yeah. Well, I mean, and personal loot technically is on World of Warcraft. That is, you will only get items that you can use. But I mean, I've ran many. I'm leveling up my mage right now to get the heritage armor, and if anything ever does, and this is the thing I hate about personal loot. Before you had pieces of gear drop regardless, right? Like literally, it was 2 pieces of gear will drop from this boss. We don't know what they are. It has a loot table, but we don't know what they are. But it was always at least guaranteed that something would drop. With the personal loot system, it's literally like a slot machine, and then I didn't get anything. And then the next boss, slot machine, I didn't get nothing. And I think I went through all of Stone Core, and I think I got one item out of the whole dungeon, which was 1, 2, 3. Yeah, out of 4 bosses, I got 1 piece of gear out of all of it.
That's a pretty horrible rate, to be
Yeah,
honest.
25%, yeah, on gear. So to add on to that is, so they say MMOs are a dying breed, but I think there's still a place for them. I mean, they're now creeping onto more mobile. I found
Well, I think they're only a dying breed based on the fact that they're breeding it out. The developers are breeding it out themselves. It's not a dying breed, they're breeding it out. So if you get a new MMO that comes in and says, okay, we're not going to have any of that. You're going to have to be in a guild, you're going to have to run stuff together, and that's just that. Right? So, and I
yeah,
think people be like, yes, because then there's no choice and you can't start backsliding, which
yeah,
I think is what the other ones have done. But then again, fair enough, they're also really old games too.
yep.
They're
I
not
mean,
new.
technically, what I think a console's lifespan normally is 7 to 8 years. So Final Fantasy 14 it started on the PS3 and it's still going, and now PlayStation 5 is coming out. So normally it's like 7 to 8 years. So technically, yeah, like I said, we're going into, if we're not in the 8th year of Final Fantasy right now, and now we're getting another console, and the game is still, the story continues, which the story technically I feel is its strongest aspect, but I think the story is crushing the other game systems. Um, you know, like and that's just a fact of, like, they were like, we have so many dungeons, because they've combined it in the roulette. That's why every patch we only get one dungeon now. Before we would get two, and those two would go into expert, and the other two would drop down. But now you only have one. But like I said, I don't think none of this is going to change in these old MMOs now. It's crazy to think when at 14 is technically in that category of old MMO now. But I think the new ones coming out have a chance. And for the most part, the only one that I know of that is going to bring the old ways back, and the only reason why that is because he's funding it himself, is Ashes of Creation. He's creating it the way that he wants it to be created, with feedback from people directly. Now,
Well, and he's a longtime MMO player too. He's not,
well,
corporate
they're like the
guy.
hardcore ones, yeah,
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 he's a player in a good way,
yeah,
not as in the other way.
right. But my question with AOC though is, and this is with anything now, right? The society's kind of changed, right? We're a fast food society, right? So I want it now. These people that love those systems are going to start playing this game, and if it's going to take forever to level and do all this other stuff, which not necessarily is a bad thing, right? Like,
No,
why do I need to get to max level right
in a
away? Like,
week,
yeah,
right?
like why can't I just sit down, enjoy this?
Well, it ruins
No,
everything, I think. The race to finish first, the race to be first, ruins everything because you don't take everything in, you don't experience everything. So I think for an MMO, that's a really bad mindset to have.
yeah. So my question to you is, do you think Ashes Creation might start this way, but dollars are what talk, right? So he might have the old guard happy and jolly and whatnot, but if the game isn't producing green and enough to keep it going and for them to expand on the game, you know,
Is it money or is it going to be integrity?
yeah. Well, I mean, that's the thing though, right? Is how long does it take for AOC to change to, oh, okay, we will put in a dungeon finder, because the thing is I think, taking your time and all that stuff is good. I'm gonna play the old devil's advocate thing in this, and I'm gonna say, is this a bad thing? Times and the players have changed. The players that want these old hardcore systems, these more social systems, these more things that take a lot of time, or their inner child gamer that is still around, and I'm one of them, and I go, I still want to play this game the way I loved it. It's that pleasure point, right? Oh man, putting this group together, I met this guy, these people, and now we're like friends and we're good to go. I married one of them later in life. Like, you're not gonna get that again. And so, Ash's Creation is going to be good, and I hope they stay true to their values.
Which
Do I think it's going to?
I think they will at the beginning because it's new. It's not 10 years
Oh
old.
yeah,
It's brand new.
oh yeah. No. It'll take a couple of years,
Yeah.
but I think, or at least it'll take its first cycle until, because I mean that's going to thing, right? A couple of years is going to determine, or the first year is going to determine if there's going to be an expansion. And how they're going to work that. And if that first year, like right out the gate, people are like, we want to do dungeons, but and that's the thing though, is they have outside dungeons. They have, I think they might have instant dungeons, but the thing is you literally fly into this open dungeon. It's kind of like well, no, I would say Elder Scrolls technically still had its instant dungeons, but um I think they're kind of doing no instant dungeons in AOC, but I could be wrong. We'll have to do another one on that one, investigate a little bit more. But like I said, I think the players themselves have changed, and I think they've got older. They have different priorities, but they still want the anchor to their childhood is in a game that has changed and has tried to adapt to fit their needs of, hey, I got 3 hours to play today. And I mean, because think about it, right? Like I can already picture like myself, well, even yourself, right? You get off of work and you're like, you've eaten, you sit down, you're like, oh, all right, like I'm gonna play this. And then you turn your head and you look at the clock and it's already like 11 o'clock at night and you have work the next morning and you're like, I only got 2 hours to play this game. And an MMO eats hours like Cookie Monster with cookies. 2 hours in an MMO is doing one thing probably, one dungeon,
Yeah.
one PvP match.
If you can find anybody to join it.
Oh, thus looking for dungeon, thus looking for raid, thus the trust system. So I think in the end, these systems and all that stuff, I think there definitely could be a cohabitable. Is that even a word? All right, we're making up words tonight. I think they can coexist with each other. And I think, in the end, does these systems that are supposed to bring us together, technically on the social side, are keeping us apart. But for us to play the game, we need these systems to kind of bring everyone together, and in your guilds and all this other stuff. Like I said, they're still around, they're still there, you can make it work. I'm not going to completely say guild culture is dead. I'm not going to say that.
No.
Like it's there. It's the people you play with. The relationships that you've gotten into. Like I've known Eric for over 10 years. I've known you for over like 4 years now. I think probably about 4 years now.
Over 4, I think, now at this point.
Yeah, and there's others, and this is the thing. This is what's sad is like I've latched on to like you guys and I've kept in touch all this time, even though you and me have played a lot more. Me and Eric haven't really played, but of course 9 hours difference currently for the last couple, like a year or so. It kind of like cuts that out of it, because he always wants to not start playing things until 10 o'clock, and that means it's like 4 in the morning here. So yeah, that's not good. So actually, no, I think it'd be, yeah. It was things like they're thinking you're gonna do 10 to 1, so yeah, 4
Yeah.
to 7 in the morning. I ain't gonna do that. East Coast would have been fine. That would have been good. But yeah, so to conclude, kind of like me talking, is it a bad thing? No. Is guild culture, going back to that, is these are combined? Is it dead? No, it's still there. The old guard is still there. The people who want to play and make it work will still be there. But I don't think these systems are going anywhere. They could get worse, but I think only new MMOs, RPGs, and new games can change this. But WoW is WoW. It's not going to change. It's not going to revert back to what it was. That's why they gave you Classic.
And is
Final
anybody
Fantasy.
really still playing Classic anymore now?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people play it quite a bit. And some of them are true blue. I don't know if you saw a thing I posted, but someone on Reddit put it was the GM that said in their Discord in all capital letters, like screaming at his members, that if they catch you playing Shadowlands, aka retail, you are off the raid team and out of the guild.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's like insane. I haven't seen like that. I
That's
haven't
pretty
seen that crap in a
hardcore.
while.
Yeah.
Right?
I guess that's real like crackdown old school though. That's the type of people that are playing Classic.
That's Asmongold and all them is actually called Classic, like toxic, right? So I mean, and just like League of Legends, all that stuff, right? League of Legends is this free to play game, and that's why I gave up on it. Like the game itself was actually pretty cool, right? But um, even when your friend actually goes and starts like yelling at you in the match, even when you're still learning it, it's like you got to be pro in your first match. Why are you going through middle with that character? Because the lane was open and needed help. You should be in jungle, and it's like, what? So
I don't know what that
yeah,
even means.
but yeah. In conclusion, for me, like I said, and then I'll hand it to Missy. Um, yeah, like I said, I like these systems. It works for me, my current job schedule. You know, which will get even tighter. After things go back to normal. Um, you know, should I consider trying to work get off the teat of these, of WoW and Final Fantasy, stop doing the insanity thing and playing the same game over and over and over and over again, trying to go after what I had a long time ago. Deep conversation, right? So I like what's going. I'm looking forward to Ashes of Creation and bringing back brand new game. You have to do it this way. There is no everyone gets a trophy in that game. It's going to be mean, it's going to be fresh, it's going to be like hell yeah. But that means, though, right, in conclusion, is when you do get something, it actually means something. If you got a dragon and a flying mount in that game, you are like one of 15 people on the whole server to get that. So as Asmongold and all the rest of them would actually say, big D'ing that. So,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I'm looking forward to it all. I don't think it's a bad thing with these systems. And to answer the question of our title is, I think the single player, I think, kind of has to be there, and it's not a bad thing.
Well, for me, I agree with what you're saying. Um, I do believe that MMOs, older MMOs, are becoming single player RPGs. They're making it that way, and I think because they have to at this point, because when they've been out that long, they have to help the new player. If somebody new is coming on and everybody's just sitting at end content and they can't find anybody to run with, and they're sitting there forever. I think an old game basically does have to become a single player RPG in order to get people through and keep them engaged and keep them playing instead of pissing them off to get them to the end content. So I would have to agree that that is happening for games that have been out for quite some time. Now, newer games, I think that remains to be seen. AOC, New World, let's see what happens there, how they're going to, bring about the guild culture again, and for how long is it going to last. And I think it has a good chance because people want the old MMOs the way they were. So I think the only way that that's going to work of everybody being more immersive with one another is to have a brand new game. Now down the road, if AOC has been out for a decade, will it go the way of a single player RPG? Probably. It all depends on how many people are playing, how many people are frustrated, how many people are whining, and it all boils down to money. If they start losing revenue because people can't get stuff done and they're looking for something else or they're going back to their old MMOs, then they're going to have to compete in order to keep up their revenue. It's always about money in the end. I don't know of anyone who's in it purely for integrity and fun, especially when you've invested multi-million dollars in developing a game. So in my opinion, are they becoming single player RPGs? Yes. Um, but again, like you said, and I totally agree with the fact that people don't have a lot of time anymore. And the people playing the older games are now adults. They're not teenagers. They're not home every weekend, They're not, sitting around with two classes and, hanging out with their friends every night. The people playing these older games, and they've been around for 14 years, are 14 years older. They're going into their 30s. They're not teenagers anymore. They have families, they have lives, they have careers. So,
Crap, they're going into their 40s now. I
so
came on board later.
perhaps.
Yeah.
Perhaps. So, well, you're not going into your 40s. So,
No, no, no. I'm just saying like others.
yeah.
Like he was playing since like vanilla and all that stuff. Yeah, it's just yeah.
So, yeah. So I do agree that yeah, they are, but I think that's the nature of the beast now. And that's something you're going to see. Like I said, not in a new game where it starts out and everybody's new. There's not some like three-quarters of your players are not sitting at end content. You're all starting at the beginning. You're all starting at once. It's going to be new for everybody. Nobody's going to be an expert at anything. So I think that will be something that can possibly come back if that's what the people want. At the end of the
Well, I
day, it's
think
what the people want. What does the mass majority want? The paying public, the playing gamer, what do they want?
they want that childhood memory back, and they ain't gonna get it back.
No, because they're not children. Unfortunately, that's the reality of it is you want that childhood situation back, but you're no longer a child, so life is no longer working that way. So,
Yeah.
unfortunately, that's the reality of now being an adult and adulting, unfortunately. Or
Yep.
they could wait till they're retired, because then they'll go back to like having all sorts of free time and being like a child. And when they're retired, then they can have those situations back and that freedom
Yeah.
back to do whatever the hell they want with their days again. Kids are all grown up, might see grandkids every once in a while, you know. So,
Yep.
they got another 30 years and then they can, experience all of that again.
Definitely.
Not such a bad thing.
Nope.
So, anyways, I think we basically covered that. Thanks everybody for watching here at Crucible Gaming Network. I'm Meadow and Amara for Cool Cats Chats here with Brad, also known as Endless88.
Me.
You. All right. Thanks everybody for joining, and we'll see you soon.
See you next time.